Welcome to Talk Treatises.
Good to be here.
Today we are taking on a heady hitter. We're cracking open a text that is, well, it's arguably the foundational guide to the philosophy of human affairs. We are diving deep into Aristotle's Nicomachean ethics.
The source code for Western ethics, really.
Exactly. And I know the title sounds a bit dusty, a little academic, maybe even dry. But honestly, this book is basically the original self-help manual.
It really is.
Yeah.
Except it's actually rigorous and doesn't just tell you to, manifest things.
Right. Stare at a vision board.
And it's so important to get that he wasn't writing this for other academics in an ivory tower. He was writing for educated men, probably statesmen, future leaders in ancient Greece. He wasn't interested in abstract theory for its own sake. He wanted to answer a very practical, burning question.
How should we live? What is the best life for a human being?
That's it. That's the whole project.
Which is the ultimate question, isn't it? And unlike his teacher Plato, who was always looking up at the stars, at these abstract forms of goodness.
Right, the perfect idea of a chair existing in some other dimension.
Exactly. Aristotle's looking right here at us. He wants to know about human character in the messy, real world. So let's unpack this. The book starts with a search for something he calls the chief good.
The summum bonum. And to find it, he looks at human behavior. He starts with a really simple observation. We do things for reasons.
Okay.
You buy a car to get to work. You go to work to make money. You make money to, buy food. Every action aims at some good. But he notices a pattern. Most things we want are just bridges to get to something else.
Instrumental goods. I want the hammer to drive the nail, not because I have a deep passion for holding hammers.
Exactly. But he argues that this chain, it can't go on forever. There has to be one thing, one final end that we desire for its own sake. Not for the sake of anything else.
Because if there wasn't, life would be pointless.
It would just be an endless chain of, I want this to get that. Our desires would be empty and vain.
A treadmill of doing without ever arriving. So he identifies this chief good as eudaimonia. Now, usually this gets translated as happiness, but we need to pause here because that's a bit of a trap for us, isn't it?
It is a massive trap. When we say happiness, we usually mean a mood. I ate a taco, I'm happy. I won the lottery, I'm happy. It's subjective. It's fleeting.
A dopamine hit.
Precisely. Aristotle's not talking about dopamine. Eudaimonia is, it's a state of being.
Yeah.
A better translation might be human flourishing.
Or doing well.
Doing well, exactly. Wow. It's objective. You can be asleep and still possess eudaimonia because it's about the state of your soul and your life's trajectory, not your current emotional temperature.
I've heard it described as success in being human. Like a flower flourishes when it blooms, it doesn't feel happy.
That's a great comparison, and he gives us a very specific definition for it. Happiness is an activity of the soul in accordance with virtue.
An activity, not a feeling. I love that. It implies work. You have to do something. And to figure out what that activity is, he brings up this really fascinating idea, the function argument.
This is one of the most famous parts of the text. He's trying to figure out what the job of a human is.
Our job description.
He looks at a flute player. The function of a flute player is to play the flute. A good flute player plays it well. He looks at an eye. The function of the eye is to see. So he asks, if carpenters and cobblers and eyeballs have a specific function, is it possible that man as a species has no function, that we are just cosmic accidents?
Seems unlikely in Aristotle's very orderly universe.
Very unlikely. So he strips away the layers to find what's unique to us. It can't just be living, growing, taking in nutrients because plants do that. If your goal is just to grow, you're just a successful vegetable.
Harsh. But I get it. If you just eat and get tall, you're a tree.
Right. And it can't just be sensing or feeling pleasure because animals do that. If your goal is just pleasure, you're a successful cow. What are the one thing humans do that nothing else does?
We reason. We use logic.
We have a rational mind. So the function of man is the active life of the rational part of the soul. And the good for man flourishing is performing that function excellently.
So your job is to be rational and act on it. That's flourishing. But there's a catch, right? The whole complete life thing.
Yes, the famous line, one swallow does not make a summer.
Meaning?
Just because you see one bird doesn't mean winter is over.
Yeah.
And just one good day or one brave act doesn't make you happy in his sense. It's a lifelong project. You can't really judge a life until it's complete.
That is immense pressure. It means you can't really say, I am happy. In the present tense, you can only say, I am living happily. A marathon, not a sprint.
It requires consistency, like a great athlete. They're great because they perform consistently, not just once.
So if the goal is this activity of the soul in accordance with virtue, we have to talk about virtue itself. How do we get it? Are some people just born good?
And Aristotle has a very firm answer here. No, we aren't born good or bad. We are born with the capacity to receive virtue, but we have to program ourselves through habit.
This is where he sounds so modern, like a behavioral psychologist.
He really does. He uses the analogy of a builder. You don't become a builder by looking at houses or reading about bricks.
You become a builder by building.
By building. You become just by doing just acts. You become brave by doing brave acts.
It's literally fake it till you make it, but for your soul. You do the right thing over and over. Maybe you don't even want to at first, until it becomes part of who you are, a state of character.
That's the key phrase, state of character. It becomes second nature. And this brings us to maybe the most practical tool in the whole book, the doctrine of the mean.
The golden mean. The idea that virtue is always a middle ground. But I think people misunderstand this as being, I don't know, wishy-washy or just average.
Right. It's not about being mediocre. He argues that virtue is a state of character, concerned with choice, that lies in a mean between two voices. One is a vice of excess too much, and the other is of defect too little.
Okay, let's walk through some examples. Take courage.
Courage is the mean. If you have too little fear and an excess of confidence, you are rash. You run into battle without armor. That's not brave, that's just stupid. A vice.
Okay, and the other side.
Too much fear, a defect of confidence, and you're a coward. You run away. The virtuous person, the courageous person, feels the fear. That's important. But they act anyway in the right amount for the right reason.
I like that he acknowledges the fear. Courage isn't being fearless, it's managing fear correctly. What about money, liberality, or generosity?
Yes. The defect is obvious, stinginess, giving nothing. But the excess is prodigality, wasting your money on everyone and everything until you're broke. That's also a vice. The mean is giving to the right people at the right time in the right amount.
And then there's pride, or great-mindedness. This one always surprises people because we come from a culture where humility is seen as the ultimate virtue. Aristotle doesn't seem to agree.
Not in the way we think of it. For him, the great-minded man claims high honors because he actually deserves them. If you deserve great things but claim little, you're small-minded. That's a vice.
And if you claim great things but don't deserve them,
then you're vain. The great-minded man has a correct estimation of his own worth.
Okay, here's where it gets tricky, though. This mean isn't a mathematical average. It's not like if 10 is too much and 2 is too little, the answer is always 6.
Exactly. He's very careful to say it's relative to us. He uses the example of Milo, the wrestler, a famous Olympian, a giant of a man. Milo needs a massive amount of food. A beginner athlete needs very little. If a trainer gave them both the mathematical average, say 6 pounds of meat,
it would be too much for the beginner and way too little for Milo.
Right. So the mean is relative to the individual's circumstances and capacity. But, and this is crucial, it's not subjective. It's not anything goes. There's a right answer. It's just really hard to find.
He says it's like finding the center of a circle. Anyone can get angry, that's easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right extent, at the right time, for the right motive, and in the right way.
That's rare. That's praiseworthy.
It sounds exhausting, like you have to be a sniper with your own behavior, and that implies you're in control, which brings us to responsibility. He spends a lot of time on voluntary versus involuntary action.
Which is so crucial for any moral system. We only praise or blame voluntary actions. If the wind blows you into someone, you aren't to blame. That's compulsion.
Right. Physics did it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or if you act in ignorance of a specific fact, like a catapult goes off by mistake because you didn't know the trigger was loose, that might be excusable.
But he draws a hard line at things like drunkenness. This feels very relevant.
He does. He says that even though you were ignorant of what you were doing while drunk, you were responsible for getting drunk. You created the ignorance. He calls us the parents of our actions.
Parents of our actions. That really sticks with you. No excuses. Now, I want to shift gears to a section I found surprisingly touching, the analysis of friendship.
It's a beautiful section. He says no one would choose to live without friends, even if they had all other goods. You could be rich, powerful, famous. But if you have no friends, you failed at being human.
But he's also pretty realistic about most friendships. He breaks them down into 3 types.
And it's such a helpful framework. First, friendship of utility. This is based on advantage. I buy from you, you sell to me. It dissolves as soon as the usefulness ends.
The network connection, friendship. We all have those.
Totally. And there's friendship of pleasure.
The drinking buddies.
Right. based on shared enjoyment, common among the young. We party together, we play sports together, but when the pleasure stops, the friendship often fades.
And there's the third one, the Holy Grail.
Perfect friendship, or friendship of virtue. This is between people who are good and alike in virtue. They wish well to each other for the friend's own sake, not for what they can get out of it.
He calls a friend like this a second self.
He does, and this is fascinating psychologically. He says we can see our own virtue reflected in them like a mirror. But these friendships are rare, and they take time. He says you have to eat a measure of salt together.
I love that image. It takes a long time to eat a bushel of salt. You have to share a lot of meals, a lot of life.
A lot of life, exactly.
Okay, so we have moral virtues, courage, friendship. These are about character.
Yeah.
But then he splits the soul, so we have to talk about the intellectual virtues.
Right. He distinguishes between phronesis and sophia.
Which sound like two ants, but are actually profound concepts.
Phronesis is practical wisdom. It's the ability to deliberate well about what's good for you and others. It's street smarts for the soul.
Yeah, Sophia.
Theoretical wisdom. Knowledge of things that cannot be otherwise. Mathematics, the stars, the eternal truths of the universe.
And this leads him to his final and maybe most controversial conclusion about the highest life. Because up until now, it's all been about action, politics, being a good citizen. But then he pivots.
He does. He argues that while political activity is virtuous, it's not the highest. War, politics, these are things we do to get something else, like peace. Yeah. But contemplation theory, using our intellect to understand the eternal, that is the only activity we do entirely for its own sake.
So the ultimate goal is to live like the gods as much as a human can.
Precisely. He says we must strain every nerve to live in accordance with the best thing in us, the intellect. It's the most continuous, you can think longer than you can work, and it's the most self-sufficient.
It's a powerful vision, and when you step back, you can really see how he's wrestling with Plato here.
That's the big tension. Plato's good was in another realm. You had to transcend this world. Aristotle brings it right down to earth. The good has to be attainable by man in this life.
And the influence is just massive. I mean, everyone from Aquinas to modern virtue ethics today is still in conversation with Aristotle. He shifted the entire question.
He did, from what rules should I follow to what kind of person should I be?
A crucial shift. All right, now that we've laid out the geometry of the soul, let's stress test it. It's time for our thought experiments.
Our favorite part.
And our disclaimer. The following scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only.
Don't try this at home.
Okay, thought experiment number 1. I call this the Milo algorithm.
I'm listening.
So Aristotle says the mean is relative to us, but it's hard to find. So imagine a future where everyone has an AI implant with perfect access to your biometrics, your bank account, your social status, everything.
Okay, total surveillance. Got it.
Before you act, the AI calculates the perfect Aristotelian mean for you. It tells you, tip exactly $14.50 or be angry at this person for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. If you follow the AI, you never err. You never hit excess or defect. The question is, are you virtuous?
Wow, that cuts right to the heart of it. Because Aristotle says virtue requires choice.
Yeah.
Deliberate choice.
Exact.
If the machine is doing the deliberation for you, you're basically a puppet. You might be performing the actions of a virtuous person, but you don't have the state of character. You aren't building the moral muscle.
So outsourcing your practical wisdom, your phronesis, actually destroys your moral character, even if it creates a perfectly behaved society.
I think he would say yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're not a moral agent.
Yeah.
You're a well-trained machine. The struggle to find the mean is what makes the virtue yours. No struggle, no virtue.
The inefficiency is the point. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2. The friendship contract.
This sounds bureaucratic.
Very. Imagine a society where you have to legally categorize every relationship. You sign a contract, type 1 for utility, type 2 for pleasure, or type 3 for virtue.
Okay.
Type 1 and 2 contracts automatically dissolve if the utility or pleasure drops. But if you sign a type 3 virtue contract, you are legally bound as a second self. You share all debts, all liability for crimes, all honors.
That's high stakes.
The question is, would codifying these categories help us find true friendship, or would it destroy it?
I think Aristotle would hate this. Friendship is organic. It transitions. You might start as friends of pleasure and then over years grow into friends of virtue.
It's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum. If you have to sign a liability contract, the risk is so high that no one would ever do it. It creates an artificial barrier. You'd be terrified to sign a type 3.
True.
And if the law creates a barrier to human flourishing, the law is bad. Plus, true friendship relies on trust, not legal obligation. If I'm your friend because the law says I share your debts, that's not virtue. That's just a very intense form of utility.
That's a great point. It loops right back to the lowest form. You've turned the highest virtue into a spreadsheet.
Which is definitely not eudaimonia.
So what does this all mean for us today? We've unpacked a lot here.
I think the biggest takeaway is that Aristotle asks us to treat life as a craft, like carpentry or archery. It's not something that just happens to you. You get better at it through practice. You aim at the target, the mean, and you keep adjusting.
It's an active way of living. It reminds us that happiness isn't a passive reward at the end. It's the activity itself. It's the building of the house, not just living in it.
Well said.
I want to leave you with one final thought. Aristotle claims the life of contemplation, doing something for its own sake, is the highest justification for living. So look at your daily schedule. How many things are you doing purely for their own sake? Not for money, not for health, not for reputation, just because the activity itself is good.
That's a hard audit to do.
And if the answer is none, have you actually started living yet?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Nicomachean ethics.
Until next time.